Hello, I'm Chris Burns and welcome to The Network, where we connect into a matrix of newsmakers to get to the heart of an issue. And watch out, they've got to answer in 25 seconds or less, or else. Let's take a look at that issue now. In the first round of the French presidential election, there was a mixture of tactical voting and votes cast in anger. According to the pollsters, François Hollande should win the second round. Voters who in the last presidential election had approved Nicolas Sarkozy's call for change have turned their backs on him. Many of them voted for other candidates, party leaders who will play a key role in the outcome of the second round. What are the messages which voters have sent out? And how will the two candidates use those messages to win? The economy is struggling. Unemployment still overwhelming. Exports are slipping. Security and immigration concerns have led many French voters to the extreme right. How will the candidates sell their energy policy and environmental policies in a country that produces up to 80% of its electricity by nuclear power? Connected to this issue of the network here in the European Parliament, Frédéric Simon, France 24 correspondent in Brussels. Also with us, Aurélien Renard, marketing director at Gallup Europe. And from Paris, Stefan Simmons, a correspondent for Spiegel Online. Thank you all for joining us. A question for all of you, starting with Frédéric. How will Le Pen supporters vote? Is that not the issue for Nicolas Sarkozy? The votes of the Greens and the Front de Gauche, the left front, seem assured for Mr. Hollande. But how will the centre vote?
Mais quid du vote du centre, Frédéric?
Obviously, those who voted for Le Pen in the first round will still have a natural tendency to plump for Nicolas Sarkozy, even if Le Pen has not directly asked her supporters to vote for him. It should still be their natural tendency. As for the centre, from what I understand, François Bayrou's voters are divided into three groups: those who'll vote for Sarkozy, those who'll vote Hollande, and those who'll abstain. So it seems a pretty equal split.
Aurélien, as a pollster, what do you think?
This time, compared to 2007, factory workers and office workers chose in a large part Le Pen, according to figures, so it will be interesting to follow the transfer of votes.
Okay,
Aurélien. Stefan, you're in Paris. How do you see the second round going?
Well, just as Frédéric said, the question is, how will Marine Le Pen supporters vote in the second round? Today I followed Nicolas Sarkozy in the Paris suburbs. He put all his efforts and all his momentum into a message directly to the voters there. It was the correct message in advance of the second round.
Is the election not about style and personality?
Yes, certainly. Sarkozy said that. It's about policies on one side and personality on the other. Policy and candidates are the key points. Except it's not good news for Sarkozy, because his balance sheet is not the best.
Aurélien, what do the statistics point to? A choice guided by personality or by policy?
That's actually a very good question. What we see is that the French have an image of their government which is not too negative. What the real problem is Nicolas Sarkozy's personality. It ultimately poses a problem in his own camp. It seems this is the first problem for Nicolas Sarkozy in his bid for re-election.
Frédéric, will the Franco-German alliance be in danger with Mr. Hollande, and thus the very workings of the European Union?
What's certain is that François Hollande will be more difficult for Angela Merkel to work with. Nicolas Sarkozy was consistent in his dealings on the Treaty on Budgetary Discipline. François Hollande asked to renegotiate the treaty, at least to add items to it on growth. So it'll be a little harder for them to manoeuvre, but Berlin is not hugely concerned. François Hollande does not scare them.
Stefan, what do you think?
I fully agree with Frédéric. When Hollande raised the issue of growth and renegotiating the treaty, it caused a few ripples in Berlin. But since then, Brussels has changed on this issue. And even though Mrs. Merkel has said she would support Sarkozy, she also added that the Franco-German alliance would not suffer if Mr. Hollande was elected.
Okay,
a question to you, Frédéric. On the question of energy, Mr. Hollande wants more renewable energy. How can he do it?
For the answer, you would of course have to ask him. But what's certain is that the Greens made an alliance with the Socialists before the elections for a gradual withdrawal of nuclear power, at least a reduction in the share of nuclear energy.
Yes, like Germany.
Not
like
the Germans, but in any case, they'll be able to make an agreement about the reduction in the use of nuclear energy. Okay,
Aurélien, what does the National Front's result mean for their policy on immigration, and what effect can it have on policy?
Listen, it's difficult to answer that question at the moment. What we know is that it clearly has had an impact on Nicolas Sarkozy's strategy and reclaiming the electorate, as I mentioned earlier. What we can also say, or at least the question may arise, and this is the big question of the second round, that is, will he be able to succeed in the almost impossible task of delivering the same message to François Bayrou voters and those of Le Pen?
Les électeurs de François Bayrou et les électeurs de Marine Le Pen.
Stefan, what do you expect the policy on immigration will be?
Well, we don't have to wait, because he said he will confront the problem of immigration. Sarkozy said that recently, because he's thinking about May the 6th. When you look at his record of the last 5 years, he was not very strict. Maybe in his rhetoric he will spend a little more time on the subject, but will it have a practical effect over the next 5 years? I'm rather sceptical.
But Frédéric, François Hollande must still make an effort for those voters who are concerned about the problem of immigration.
This is actually one of the topics where there's a big question mark on what François Hollande will do. Will he take a step to the right of his own party by conceding a little bit on this issue of immigration? This is actually one point that could be decisive in the second round. At the same time, if he goes too far right, he could stray from the party's electoral base. He has to be very careful.
The wrong move and he could lose votes. But given the results of the first round, is France increasingly ungovernable? Are we heading towards a political crisis? How will we cope?
Une crise politique. Et comment s'en sortir, Aurélien?
Ce que je pense, c'est qu'il faudra absolument effectivement regarder et lire.
What I think is that the results of the second round will be closely read and analysed. Estimated figures showed a large gap in advance of the voting on Sunday, April 22nd. They showed a fairly large difference. It seems that the gap is much smaller than that. The figures show a form of polarisation of the electorate, and that might actually cause some problems.
Stefan, do you see France as increasingly ungovernable?
Ungovernable, no, but deeply divided, yes. We have the right and left, of course, and once May the 7th comes, the day after the election, any president will find it difficult to govern, because the problems facing France are huge. The debt, the crisis it's caused, will all come back to the president, and it will determine the next 5 years. I think the margin for a president to manoeuvre, whether left or right, will be minimal.
Thank you, Stefan. We've come to the end of this programme. Thanks to our guests, Frédéric Simon, Aurélien Renard and Stefan Simmons. I'm Chris Burns. Thank you for staying connected to The Network.